Donna, are you ready to rumble?
I'm ready to rumble.
Then let's rumble. Hey, everyone. It's Simon Brooks here with my good friend Donna Washington, who's where are you living? I never remember these things. Where are you living?
I'm in North Carolina.
She's in North Carolina, and I'm all the way in New London, New Hampshire, New England. And welcome to yes, it is. It's a place.
So you took all the tiny states and stuck them together.
They did. And I'm in my garage, which is great. And Donna's in a nice living room with nicely painted background. I like that blue. It's very nice. And yeah, Friday we're friends. And this is my friend Donna. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Your pleasure. My pleasure. Our pleasure. Jeez.
I'm pleased to be here.
So you've been overseas recently, haven't you? Well, not recently, but like, somewhat, like in the last few months, 6 months, 7 months, a year ago.
I was in Australia.
You were?
Australia. Yeah. They do their biannual storytelling conference, New South Wales, Australia. And so I was there. I love going to that thing. I've been twice. And I absolutely adore it. I get to meet storytellers from that area, storytellers from England come in. And when I went last, I stopped and spent a week in New Zealand. Ooh. And hung out with my buddy Carolyn Welkin and just had a really good time.
So did you do Hobbit Country?
No, she's on the different island from Hobbit Country, but they did film a number of things on where she is. So I went to Elvendar, and I was I went to the gardens of the Elvendor Palace, and we were some of those places where they were like, going over those big giant hills, and so yeah, we got to go see some stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. Did you get little elven ears to put on and walk around with?
No, somehow that escaped me, but I totally would have worn hobbit feet if I could have found some.
Oh, like big, yeah. My daughter wants something like that for her birthday, which is coming right up. Not hobbit feet, but like slippers that look like hobbit feet. Yeah.
We went to the studio where they filmed, like they did a lot of the editing and stuff, and where they fashioned a lot of the creatures. And you get there, and right out front are those 3 gigantic trolls that get turned into stone. Oh. So I have pictures with myself. And if you go into the airport, Smog, a giant Smog heads in the airport. And if you go by, his eyes light up and he talks to you.
Oh, really? Does he say nice things or?
No, he's not a particularly lovely creature.
Does he say, remove your shoes and take your belt off right now?
This is too much liquid in this container.
Yes. No. You haven't got all your soaps in a little baggie.
No, it's fun. It was fun. It was fun to watch kids freak out. Like little kids going, "Oh, it's my because he's like, it was just too much.
That's so cool. I like stuff like that. I do like dragons, but I think you know that already. Oh, yes. I'm a big dragon fan.
I collect them.
Oh, you do?
I have a huge collection of dragons.
Oh, no way.
I wish I had known. I would have brought some in here with me. And
I was thinking the same thing. If you like because Tony Toledo, you know Tony, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He sent me this little glass paperweight thing. And it's one of those things that are laser drawn, so it looks like it's inside, or it is inside. And there's 3-dimensional dragon on the inside of this thing, and you turn it around, and it's amazing. And I got a dragon in my office, a Malaysian dragon in my office, hanging from the ceiling.
Wow!
I've got St. George and the Dragon painted by Trina Sharp Hyman, who is just freaking amazing. Well, she's passed away, but a good long time ago. But she was prolific in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Amazing artist, and we have a huge poster. I mean, it's full-size poster that's hanging up in the dining room.
Oh my gosh, my allergies decided to go a little nuts today, so please forgive me as my eyes water crazy here.
Oh, we'll just say that you're having too much fun and you're laughing.
Oh no, that's part of it too. But so I've been collecting dragons since I was about 12.
No way.
I went to a fair with my parents, and I bought a little bitty candle dragon, a dragon that was like a candle, and I still have that thing. And then from there, as I got older, I got more interesting dragons. And then almost every year of my kids' childhood, they bought me some kind of dragon or frog. I also collect frogs. So I have frogs and dragons. So I have a gorgeous collection of them. some really gorgeously handcrafted ones. A kid clearly bought this dragons. And this summer, one of the things I do is our church has a camp called Hogwarts on the Hill.
Ooh.
And I teach as Melinda Menagerie, and I teach care of magical creatures.
Oh, nice.
And so this year, since we can't actually hold the meeting at the church, and they decided that the board decided that despite that, having the kids have some kind of magical thing would be fun. So where all the professors are filming their segments, and we are going to be delivering crafts or whatever to the church, and then the parents can come by 9 3/4 platform 9 3/4, which we're going to set up at the church, and pick up their Hogwarts bags. And then they can take their Hogwarts bags home, and then you will be able to log on to a virtual video, obviously,
Okay.
and then the teacher will teach the class that way, and you'll have all your materials. So I'm doing dragons this year since it's complete 3D. So I took some footage outside of a box, and ideally I had been studying a dragon. I'm going to open the box. My son is a 3D animator. He's going to have a dragon come out of the box, look around, climb down, and go off into the tree. So we'll have a dragon in my video.
That's going to be so cool.
My daughter's
you
a
going to green screen
artist.
that so it comes over and all that, or
no, he's gonna, I don't know how he's gonna do this, but he said he could, to get the dragon to pop up out of the box and look around and then like walk away. I've been studying little bee dragons. He said he could do it. He's got the footage. And my daughter's a visual artist, 2D visual artist. Right. So she's creating a handbook, a dragon handbook. And she's hand drawing freestyle all these gorgeous dragons. And she's going to paint them for me, and then I'm going to have them reproduced, and every kid's going to get a dragon handbook. I'm really excited.
Please, miss, can I have one too?
I will send you your very own dragon handbook. And it's going to be gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. She's just making up dragons at this point. And we're just going to,
I was going to suggest, because I do like dragons, and I was going to possibly suggest that I would do a painting and I could scan it and then print off a whole bunch and send them to you to send to the kids. But if your daughter's already making this,
you got it covered.
I do. All right.
But if you want to send me a dragon, I'll tell you what, I'll trade you. I'll send you my daughter's handbook, and you can send me a dragon.
All right, I'll send you the original. I'll do a watercolor, and I'll send you the original.
Look at you being all multi-talented.
It's not really. You might look at it, and it might. Hang on. This is. I don't know what this is, but it might look something like this.
Oh my goodness. You know what?
Oh, it was upside down. Sorry. No, it wasn't. That was the right way up. It's a sloth. My niece did that, and it's going to be featured in my next week's Wednesday stories.
Excellent.
Yeah. So talking of stories, you like folk tales, don't you?
Oh, I love them.
Me too.
Oh, I love them.
Do you want to share one?
Sure.
Let me just throw that at you.
You want a nice short folk tale?
Yeah.
All right.
Or do you want to do a full hour? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I've been thinking about this. And one that keeps coming to mind is, at this time. And it's one that I have recorded recently, and it's one I think about a lot. It's called The Difference Between Good and Evil.
Oh, okay.
And it's this story about this man who really wants to know the difference between good and evil. How can you tell if you're doing good or you're doing evil? And so he's told, there's a man up on this mountain. He's really wise. He's been thinking about things a long time. Go ask him. He'll know the answer. So he goes trooping up the mountain, and there he sees the man sitting there meditating. And he says to the man, excuse me. And I was like, yes. Can you tell me the difference between good and evil? And the man who'd been meditating, his first thought was, if you don't know the difference between good and evil, you're not safe. But then he just laughs. He said, yes, I can. Come, sit. So he sits and he says, okay, take my hands. Close your eyes. And he does. And he's transported to this place. And it's a grand banquet hall. And the table is groaning with food and drink, more than enough to feed the people who are sitting there. And yet every single one of them is withering away to nothing. They are starving, their faces caved in, their eyes are haunted. And he notices that every single one of them, their arms are straight out. They will not bend at the elbows so that they can pick up everything around them, but they cannot get it to their own mouths. And so in the midst of plenty, there is great want. And the man opens his eyes and he's back in the cave and he says, what is that? That's evil, right? Evil means you don't get what you want and you're starving and terrible because of it. And the wise man said, well, maybe not quite. Here, give me your hands again. And he takes his hands and the man closes his eyes and he's transported right back to what looks like exactly the same room. Same gorgeous banquet room. The table is groaning with food, the same people, but these people are laughing and they're happy. And of course, in my story, they're always sharing stories. And he can't figure it out because they are just like the other people. Their arms such that they can't bend at the elbows. And when he looks closer, he realizes that they are feeding each other.
Yes.
And then he opens his eyes and the wise man says, do you understand good and evil? And the man sitting across from him says, yes. Yes, I think I do. And the wise man said, good. Then go out into the world and make good. And that's how that story ends.
I like that story.
Yeah.
I like that story. Where did you find what sources of that is yours? Of that made no sense.
So
you knew what I was talking about.
the English. You have two different kinds of English.
I know, American and English. And I'm throwing Canadian as well, I guess.
So that is originally, I learned it as a Sufi story. So it's a story in the Sufi tradition.
Okay.
And I also originally learned it as heaven and hell. Like, what's the difference between heaven? What's the difference between hell? I've heard it told in so many different contexts that I wouldn't even know, you could probably look up good and evil or heaven and hell feeding each other. I've seen it called the feast. So I really do not have, other than to understand that it came out of the Sufi tradition, which is how I found it. Mm-hmm. There is no sense to me that it really comes from anywhere. It's like some of those really old stories you hear, it probably started somewhere, but half the traditions in the world will say it's theirs.
Right.
My friend Carrie Suevar, who's a wonderful storyteller out of Florida, she says every story is Jewish except for the ones that are African. And I say, I beg to disagree. They're all African.
And Andrew Lang, he thought they were all from India.
Of course he did.
Yeah. He said that they all came from India and they changed as they went on the trade routes.
Well, where did the Indians get them?
I don't know. Yeah, right. Well, it's the oldest civilization, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where it all started. So, yeah. But I love folk tales. It's always interesting to me when I encounter some of this. Well, how do folk tales and fairy tales, how did they apply today? And I always just laugh and go, are you kidding me?
Yeah, me too.
They're all about today. They're about today and yesterday. They'll be about tomorrow.
Yeah, it's because they're so timeless. I mean, it's like the situations change, right? Kids are abandoned, not necessarily in forests, but they're abandoned right at home because the parents are working 3 jobs or they're traveling too much or they're just more interested in their job and their career than their family, And it's
or at least they think they are.
Yes, right.
Yes. Well, and what I love about folk tales is there's the way people connect with them. They connect with them in all different kinds of ways. And so, there's wonderful stories about, lots of times I show up at a school, I do my 90 minutes or my 45 and I'm out the door. I got someplace else to be. But sometimes I soak in it, right? So I show up at a school and I'm there all day long doing 4 shows or teaching 4 classes or something. And so I had one of those schools. I was there. I'd been there all day. And it's the end of the day and I'm packing my stuff to go. And this woman who I didn't see, a lot of times I don't see the specials teachers because they're teaching when I'm performing. It always came up. And this woman came to me, she grabbed my arm And she said, can I talk to you because you're the storyteller? I said, sure, what's up? She drags me in the room and she says, okay, so we have this kid we have been working with all year. And we need to try to get her to read. And she just reads with this flat monotone voice. And she's not interested. Her parents aren't interested. We can't get her to do it. She came to your show this morning. And then she came to reading right after. And she read something. It's like the dog bit the man. And she went, that's not how it's supposed to sound. And then she reread it. The dog bit the man. And then she went through this whole thing. And she was so excited, and her voice was very, she had all this emphasis. She said, I can't wait to go home and read this to my parents. And she was just teachers crying. She says, all year we've been trying to get her to understand that, but it didn't even occur to us that she had not heard stories. Right. She had not heard anybody do that. But as soon as she did, she made that connection. It was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, we are hardwired for stories. We've always been hardwired for stories.
Yeah.
So they will always speak to us. And they speak to us if they speak to us on a really elemental level. Right. And folk tales do that.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like that distilled. There's nothing, it's all, it's that's where all the power is, all the fluffiness, all the frills have gone, and it's just like that pith, that
right. And you don't have to dig for it.
Yes,
that's the thing. It's distilled. It's right there.
Yeah.
I have been involved in some of these gorgeous international storytelling gatherings where I've just gone to listen. A couple times I've told. But one thing I love, and Liz Ware, who's out of Ireland, I've been at a couple of her Saturday night experiences, and I have to tell you, everyone does folklore, and they do traditional music, and I am in heaven. I just turned to my husband at some point. I was like, we need to move to Ireland.
I tell you, there's one of the places I want to go, and I would love to just take off one winter and spend a month with Liz, or a couple of months with Liz, just absorbing what her work, and also that whole culture of storytelling. I think that would totally change, my whole outlook on stories. I think it would to change the way that I present my stories. Give me more depth, and I'd love to do that.
Well, after I've spent like I've done a couple of these with her now, and I was just like, can I just come every Saturday and just watch? I mean, I don't need to do anything exciting. I don't need to tell. I don't need you to even tell anyone I'm there. Can I just come and watch? It's so lovely.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those tellers who's not a big fan of personal narrative. Mostly because I think you have to have a good distance on your personal stories before you kind of have a sense of what they're actually about. Yeah. And most people do stuff and then immediately put it up on stage. And sometimes I walk away from that and I think, if you had thought about that for 20 minutes, you never would have told that story in public.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like them off. There are some shows that are really, really good. And there's some storytellers that do these really good stories. But I've heard some stuff that is just like, I can't believe you just shared that with the whole world. It's like, don't you have a therapist?
Well, I'm not certain I should pay you to listen to your therapy. I think that it should be the other way. There are people who are training for this.
And there are some people who are really good. I mean, the first personal narrative that I heard was from Meg Gilman, another New Hampshire person, and she just blew me away. Yeah. It was, it spoke on the universal level. It was just phenomenal. And then I heard Reggie Carpenter do one of her personal, and that was just like,
yeah.
And so I started with a bar pretty high, but I've also seen, it's kind of like the poetry scene back in the 80s and 90s when that got really big, and there's a lot of poetry slams and all that kind of stuff. And I used to go to those as a writer of poetry, and I'd be like, really? It's what is that?
Well, one of the things we talk about in our business is that we have no QC, right? We got no quality control.
Yeah, right.
We got no QC. But how would you even have QC? who gets to decide what is and what isn't, and
Right.
what touches you and what doesn't touch you? And just
Right.
because something is not for me does not mean it's not for everybody.
Right.
And there
I
is
totally agree with that.
right, and there is
Yeah.
enough storytelling that you don't need to be in one camp or the other to enjoy it.
Right.
And the thing that really I've really had to learn is that there is a place really in my own repertoire for personal narrative. For me, it really has to be boundaried by folklore, mostly because that's the only way I can be certain it's still universal and not me just getting up and talking about something.
Right. Mo Reynolds does that.
Yeah. I've gotten to see her work. That's one thing I can say about this pandemic. I have gotten to see storytellers that I would not have gotten to watch. And I love Mo's stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely adore it.
Yeah, she's amazing
And
storyteller.
I had never seen her perform before the pandemic. Just because sorry, go on.
I got really lucky. I got to see her. I performed with her. And so I saw some of the peripheral preparation for her work. I mean, not, not the deep stuff, but like before she got up on stage and stuff. And she's the real deal. Absolutely real deal. She's phenomenal. And she needs to be out there more.
Yes, I agree. Really as soon as I saw her, I was like, how come I never heard this person? There are...
Well, it's because she lives near Canada in the middle of the country.
Well, there's something to be said for that.
There is.
So, all right. So I've gotten to hear more international performers. I've gotten to hear some wonderful, wonderful Irish stories that I have asked permission for and have gotten permission to add to my own work. I love this story about the dude that wheezes on his roses. And then the little man's like, why are you wheezing on my roses? Amy Douglas. I heard her tell this great story about the dude. He's got these gorgeous roses and people ask him how, and he goes, that's for me to know and you to never find out. And then it turns out that the way he does it is he gets up first thing every morning and he stretches and you tell us version of it. You tell a version of this story. Yes, you do with the potato peelings or something that you throw out the back door.
Oh,
so he stretches and he stretches and he feels the call of nature and he goes running out and he whips up his nightshirt and he wheezes all over his roses. Every single morning. He's got an outhouse, but he doesn't use it. He wheezes on his roses. And so one morning he gets up and he throws his shirt up and he's wheezing all over his roses. And he hears, oi! And he looks down. And there's a wee little man. And he says, what are you doing? Do you have an outhouse like a civilized person? And he says, what are you talking about? These are my roses. I'll wee on them if you want. Every morning you come out here, you're weeing all over everybody. You're weeing down my chimney. My wife is really upset. And then he puts his boot in the guy's toe and he sees this entire thing of you little people covered in wee. The horses are covered with wee. The car is covered with wee. And the little man's wife got her apron thrown over her head. She's crying and crying. I love that story.
Oh my gosh, that's a good one. That's a keeper. Yeah, I do the Welsh version of that, and it's all potato peelings and whatnot. Yes. You're right. I have never heard the Irish version. That's great. I might have to look into that. See if I can find some sources. Or get in touch with Amy.
Yes, it was the most hysterical thing. I just laughed the entire time. I was like, "Can I tell that story?" And then she sent me some sources for it. But oh my gosh!
So Sarah popped a question up, which I think is a very good question. What I shall do is I've got a link to the Irish Storytellers YouTube page, so I shall put that up, and also Liz Weir's. Liz Weir's. I'm not sure if it is actually Liz Weir's, but it's an Irish thing that's all Irish storytellers come and they perform.
The yarn spinners thing that happens.
Is that what it is? Okay, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll post those. I'll post those on my Facebook stream, and I'll send you an email also, Donna, so that you can put it on your Facebook feed as well, because I think that would be nice for us to share. Because I've been working my way through one of the folk spinners things, and I haven't watched it all the way through to the end yet because there are so many storytellers. And I'm so glad it's on YouTube, because I'll watch one or two and then I'll get back to work, and then I'll be like, my brain's like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'm gonna watch some more storytelling. And then, 2 hours later, my wife comes in and goes, so what are you doing? Research. looking for new stories.
Well, I gotta tell you, I am an introvert on top of everything else. I'm a really introverted person, which a lot of people find kind of weird, but I am.
There's
And
a word for it.
an ambivert is what they call it.
That is.
I'm an
That is what.
ambivert.
Yeah, me too.
And so it's really funny to be home and not be able to go anywhere means everybody can find me. That's a new thing. Normally,
I
I'm
know, because
somewhere.
you're on the road, right, all the
Right, I'm
time.
on the road a lot.
Yeah.
And normally David is here, so he picks up the phone. Even if I'm home, people don't think I'm here. So it does sort of cut down on access. Well, now everybody knows exactly where I am. And so people they send me links. Oh, come watch, do this, come watch it. If I spent as much time watching storytelling
Oh my
as I
gosh.
get invited to watch, I would never do anything else.
Yeah. Not even sleep.
No, it's always on. You can
Yeah.
always find storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it to be, it's really funny. As an ambivert, I find it to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I find it to be overwhelming.
I'm in the same boat. Yeah, totally.
I swan in. So I had to start scheduling when I was going to watch storytelling and what I wanted to be part of and what I was going to have to backseat. And I actually have done a number of storytelling events where I've had to kind of go, I'm here because I've been invited, but I wish I could turn off my camera.
So so my laptop has a camera on it. So anything that I'm doing like this or anything that I'm engaging with, I use my laptop. But last night I went to watch Jessica Robinson's show.
Yeah.
Which had some amazing stuff. Bill Lepp was there, Andy Owen was there, and Kristen
Piedmonte.
Yes, she was there. Oh, she did an amazing story. It was a dark story, but it was so filled with light and optimism and hope. It was so uplifting. It was brilliant. And there are other people there as well. It was really good. But I use my desktop because there's no camera on that. And so I can watch whatever I want. I have no microphone hooked in, so I can't talk. I can't be seen. All I do is watch. It's like stealth mode. I love it. Oh, and Jane, she's just shared a link. Storytelling archive. Okay,
Yeah,
so yeah, I'll add that to my list of things at the end of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and so encountering storytelling. But I think the thing I'm most proud of is something even that I'm like barely involved in right now, which is
that's the
artists standing stronger together.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you added that together because that was important.
Yeah, the first, and I'm sure anyone who follows me know, like the first day everything shut down. Like when we got our first calls, the school started canceling. Within 24 hours, we lost $15,000. Right, $15,000 just poof, and the next day another 15, poof, just gone. And we are fortunate to be able to ride this. But it just occurred to me, and I thought, how many storytellers do I know that can't ride this, that are going to have to try to figure out how to do this? And that was my biggest concern, because just as we are the first thing cut from every program, we are the last thing considered. Yeah. And a lot of artists live on the margins. Yeah. So I was trying to figure out, like, is there some place where we could all gather to talk about this or help each other? And I kind of thought, my first thought was Innocent would do that, but not everyone who's an artist is a storyteller. Right. Right. We come from different places. And it just so happened that the Women's Storytelling Festival was happening, and Sheila Arnold I was seeing the same things I was asking showing up on Sheila Arnold's feed, and I was like, we need to talk. And within 24 hours, we had created a group, and she is an extrovert, like an extreme extrovert.
Oh, she is I don't know how she puts in the hours that she puts in.
Right.
And it's like, she's like an express train.
She is. And
on steroids. It's crazy.
She lives alone also. So I think that kind of interaction is really important to her, but she's also, as she puts it, an administrative person. And I was like, the only thing I want you to promise me is that you don't do all of this. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm happy to set it up. I'm happy to help you start it, but I can't, there's too many other things going on for me to be like administering a group. And she's like, that's okay, I'll do it. And then she started doing these Zoom story fests, and really she has become a festival coordinator, and she coordinates these huge festivals. And Jim Brule deals with the what do you call it?
Technical side?
No, he does like the Facebook page, and he does
right.
You know,
he does the social media stuff.
Right. So he does that. We have a blog that I update when something interesting comes on to. But it's functioning perfectly well outside of me, which is good because I immediately had to start doing my own projects. And so I'm really pleased that got put together. I'm glad it got put together. If you are a storyteller and you want to donate to help other storytellers, there's actually a board that if you go to the NSN site, there's a way to donate to a fund that you can that helps storytellers who are having trouble paying their bills. And if you need money to help pay your bills, then you can apply to that fund.
Right. And I'm in the same boat as you. In similar boat. My wife didn't lose her job, and we've got to the point where we're pretty much self-sufficient. So there's, all these grants that started coming out, and Sarah's like, are you going to apply for any of those? And I'm like, no, because there are people out there that are living hand to mouth, and I don't want to take that money away from them. And I'd rather they get it. And there are, and I did see some people like talking about, I've applied for this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, like hundreds of grants. And then I see later on, not on our listservs, but on other artist listservs, and they're like, I've got this, and this, and this. And I'm like thinking, well, how many people, I mean, I get it. We all need to get paid, but it's like, I just hope that there's enough money for everybody.
Well, we do this weird thing in this country, and I think it's a capitalist thing. We have a thought about scarcity.
Yes.
There's a scarcity.
I know.
So you can't share what you have because there's a scarcity. And that
false.
Causes us to, it is false, but it causes us to not bend our elbows and share with the people around us, right?
Yeah, right. It does. Yeah.
There's that sense that I have to get mine. Like, what on earth would people go out and buy every, shred of toilet paper they can find at the beginning of this? Like,
if everybody stayed normal, nothing would have run out.
Right. Exactly. If we had just everything, how many hand sanitizers do you need? Like, there's that sense that it's scarce, and because it's scarce, we can't share. And so trying to figure out how to help us not do that, how to not think about it as scarce as we don't have enough. And that was kind of what brought us to going into, like I said, the artist staying together thing. There are ways to share resources. And I saw someone in the comments was talking about Jim Brule. Yeah, Jim Brule has been there from the start. Like I said, he does office hours. If you have like technical issues that you need, he is there to help out. He's absolutely fabulous. I have never met Jim Brule.
He is tall. He's a giant of a man.
Really? Is he?
Yeah. When I saw pictures of him, I thought that he was going to be, like close to my height, maybe a bit shorter. And I'm looking around this room, and there's Jim Brule, and it's like, yeah.
But yeah, so there's a sense that we have scarcity, like there's not enough of things.
But there is. There was. Now there's a scarcity.
Okay, so here's something nutty. I just was reading this article about the fact that it's not that we have a scarcity of toilet paper; it's how we distribute it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So
yeah.
We manufacture some for like businesses and industrial things, and we have some for personal use. And the supply chains don't cross, and they're just two different industries almost, so specialized. Right. So now we have a domestic supply issue because people aren't working. Like, they're not selling it to companies right now. They're not running out of it.
Right.
So if we could figure out how to get what we have to people who need it,
right,
that would be really helpful.
It would.
And we just it's almost like we're either unable to figure that out, or we're just figuring, eventually this will go away. We'll worry about it later. But wouldn't this be such a great time
Yes.
to figure out how to revamp
Yeah.
ourselves so that we are serving each other? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. Yeah. It would. I mean, marvelous.
Which is why you need folktales, right?
Which is why we need folktales, because they
that's what
talk
they're
about that. Yeah,
the
they're about
basics of how we deal
right.
with each other.
It is. It's all about sharing abundance, because there is abundance.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
it is a different. Sarah says it's a different type of toilet paper, and it's like go to an artist store and you buy rolls of paper. Yeah,
Exactly. Well, this is why they don't necessarily.
it's only a lot narrower.
Well, where in your bathroom could you put? You've seen those industrial size rolls, right?
Yes.
So but they do make like toilet paper for corporations that isn't like that. But
Right, I know.
I know. But I was because we were talking about that at the kitchen table. It's like, think about the giant rolls, and then my husband actually. My husband went to the grocery store this morning at 7 a.m. and scored 48 rolls.
Nice. So you're turning him into a hoarder. I see how you are.
Nah, well, the one will last us for like about a month and a half because both my kids are home.
Yeah.
So you can get two. So he bought two so that we could go for the rest of the summer. But the thing that just kind of struck me about that was like, resources, how we get our resources.
Right.
But can you imagine in your house if you had one of those giant rolls on the back of your
Yes, I know.
Where would you put that? So, yeah. So
you'd be sitting on the system, pushing off the toilet, right? I can't. What is that? Oh, it's a toilet paper.
Oh my gosh! I could. There'd be like a video of pets running these things around the house when the owners were out. God, can you imagine?
I know.
So,
yeah, we can't. No one's going to be toilet papering any trees lately.
No,
it's
too precious.
I know.
Too precious.
And if they do, there'll be people like ripping it off very, very carefully, trying not to ruin it.
Well, one thing it also teaches us we've learned in this pandemic is what's actually important and what's not.
I know.
Yeah, what you
I was
can
kind
live
of
with
joking. People were asking me, like, well, how are you doing now that your son's moved home and everything? It's like, well, we haven't killed him and eaten him yet, and we haven't used their clothes for toilet paper, so it's a good thing. Yes. It's and the food bill. Now he's back home. He'd been gone a while, and we're getting used to this. Like, it's the food bill's like dropped down a bit, and it's kind of. He comes back, and his friends. There's a small core group of his friends who are hanging out together.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not mixing with other people, and so they come around and we feed them and everything. It's just like wow, we'd saved so much money when he moved out.
My son is 23, and his idea of a meal is 3 double hamburgers with bacon and ketchup and lettuce, and then usually half a bag of Fritos. That's like a snack.
My daughter's getting into that. She's 15 coming on. Well, she's 14 coming on 15, and she's getting into that. She just grazes all day.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my daughter's 20. I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, she was making this is like 3:00 in the afternoon. She's making herself some spaghetti. I was like, it's a bit early for supper, isn't it? And she's like, no, this is my snack.
Before the dinner, Dad. I gotta get another hour and a half.
Okay.
I can't do it.
All right, go for it, kid.
So, but my daughter she's 20, and so she's past that whole eating like a truck driver thing. But we do end up, we occasionally end up having adopted another child for several days because there's like they're gonna binge watch something, and so they show up. They're here for 4 or 5 days. They just eat here and live here, and stay upstairs in the room, binge watching, and then coming downstairs and going, "What's to eat? What's the food? Where are we gonna eat?" Then they take it and go back upstairs. So we have that situation here.
Yeah.
It is weird though to have them both home.
Is it nice though? Are you enjoying it? Yeah.
We have family game night every Friday night for 3 hours. We have meals together. My big old hulky son comes down and gives me a big hug every morning and says, "How are you?" His thing is, I have nothing to worry about. I live at home with my parents. I have no overhead, but you guys are working hard. I will do whatever you need me to do. He's like the sweetest boy ever.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
I need my son to learn to do video editing.
He's a 3D dimensional designer. That's what he got his degree in. So having him here is very nice.
Yeah. Sarah just made a really good comment. Sarah De Beer again. She says that we need one of those tablecloths that makes infinite food. We do.
That would be good.
We
That
do.
would be good. Teenagers are a thing,
They
and
are.
young adults are a thing.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
So, yeah.
So that story that you told, the one about the stiff arms and all that kind of stuff, is that's obviously very dear to you right now, given everything that's going on in this crazy world that we're living in. Is there another story that you're like that you've become attached to, or is that the big one?
That's the one I've become really attached to in just because I feel like it covers so many things.
Yeah.
There's so many elements of understanding how we live together. I have been recording like a crazy lady because we're moving our business virtual.
Yeah.
So I've been recording stories and editing stories and curating stories, and my brain has been filled with my repertoire for the last, I don't know, however long. And trying to figure out like what stories are most appropriate now.
Yeah.
And I won't tell this whole story because it's 15 minutes long, but
Okay.
one of the stories that has been like speaking to me a lot is Three Princes Riding, which is a fractured fairy tale that was originally written by Nancy Schimmel. And basically it's fairy tale land's having a problem because there's nothing to do. All the marriage, the witches are up in the mountains having a party, and all the magicians have gone back to school to learn new magic, and all of the dragons and ogres and whatever are hibernating, and all of the princesses of marriageable age are married, and the rest of them are 2 years old, and there's nothing to do. But every king still has 3 sons.
Yeah.
And when you're home with your brothers and sisters, right, and you can't get away from each other, you might fight. But these guys are armed and dangerous and grown. And so the king says, get out, go, have a life somewhere. You can't be here. Go away. And then the oldest son says, you haven't told us to do anything, right? You want us to be handsome, and we're handsome. You want us to be strong, we're strong. You want us to be charming, we are charming. But there is no call for that in today's economy. What are we to do? So the king says, let me teach you stuff. So teachers come in, and the first son says, I'm going to go out in the world and be a great politician and a storyteller. And the king says, go. And he goes up and he encounters 3 people. He encounters an old woman with a goat, and a young woman with a baby, and an old man with an axe. And they all ask for help. And he says, I'm a prince. I'm going out in the world to be a politician, storyteller. And off he goes. The second son, a year later, he says to the father, I know what I want to do. I want to be a great teacher and a storyteller. And the king says, here's my second fastest horse. And he goes up on the second fastest horse, right? Off he goes. And he sees the same people. And they ask again, can you help us? And he says, no, I'm busy. I'm going to be a teacher and a storyteller, because everyone in fairy tale has to be a storyteller. And off he goes.
I like
and
that.
Then the third son, he doesn't go see his father for like 4 years. And finally the king says, what do you want to do? And he says, I have no idea. I did this like general studies course. And I think I need to go out find myself. And the king says, look, if you know where you're going, you need a fast horse. And he gives him this old broken down horse. And so this kid goes down there like, and he sees the old woman with the goat. And he asks her if she's okay. And she says, I need someone to milk this goat. And he says, I'll do it. I'm not going anywhere. So he milks the goat. And he turns around and she's gone. But the goat is there. So he drinks the milk. And he has some lunch. Then he ties the goat to his horse and he goes down the road. And he sees a young woman with the baby. And he says, can I help you? And she says, I need milk for this baby, but I don't have to beg. I have some money. Can you take me to the nearest town? He's like, I have to go anywhere. I got a goat full of milk right here. Hold on. So he gets off the horse. He milks the goat. And he turns around and the woman is gone and the baby is still there. So he feeds the baby. And he gets back on the horse and down the road he goes. And he sees the old man with the axe and he says, can I help you? And the man says, when I was a woodsman, I cut wood in these trees. And now my back is sore. My arms are tired. If I might freeze to death tonight. Can you help me? And he says, he thinks to himself, the prince thinks, man, I got a baby and a goat. I need a job. So he says, sure, he will cut down some wood, and he cuts some wood. And then he goes and follows this woodsman into the forest, and he makes himself a beautiful house, and he gets married, and he has a cradle for the baby, pasture for the goat and the horse, and he becomes a woodsman. And then one day he hears that one of his favorite clients is not feeling very well. And she's an old lady. She lives by herself. And he thinks, oh, I should go check on her. And he goes and he looks in the window, and he sees this wolf chasing a girl in a red cape around a table. And I don't know what version of the story you know, but in the one I know, we used to kill the wolf, but now he's an endangered species, so we let him go. And Little Red Riding Hood is there, and Grandma's hiding in the closet, and then they all sit at the table and they have cookies and milk. And so the first son became a great politician, but he was so impressed that he got elected, he forgot about the people who voted for him, and they forgot about him. And the second son became a great teacher, but he was so impressed with how smart he was, he forgot about the people he was supposed to be teaching, and they forgot about him. But the youngest son stopped and was in service to all the people in his community who needed him. He was in service to them, and he worked with them and helped people. And him we remember. He is the woodsman in Little Red Riding Hood. So only you can decide who's going to tell your story and how you're going to be remembered.
That's excellent. I like that. That is really good.
It's a great story.
Yes, it is.
And I think about that, again, another one that's sitting with me right now. We are responsible for the people around us.
We are. We are. That's, I see that, I've seen other people post it up on, we're service providers.
Yeah.
And we need to be out there doing our work, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, because I want to bring a bit of joy. And I know that the people that I know well enough, I can have a good giggle with. And, so, and if you and I can have a good giggle, then the people watching are hopefully also having a bit of a giggle. Mm-hmm. And the stories that we tell, they got to be enlightening. There's a story that I'm going to be telling for the Hans Christian Andersen Festival. Mm-hmm. And it's a little known story of Hans Christian Andersen called Jack the Dullard. And it's the two brothers go off on their horses. They're going to win the princess's hand in marriage. Mm-hmm. And Jack's the guy that goes along on a goat. His father gives him a goat to travel on, or he takes his own goat to travel on. His feet almost touch, but not quite touch the ground. And he finds these crazy things along the way that everyone's like, what do you need that for? Yeah, he's typical New Englander. He's like, I can use this for something.
Right. It'll come in useful.
Yeah, it will. And he's the one that ends up marrying the princess, because he's got this. He's not thinking about himself. He's thinking about other people. Mm-hmm. And that's a story that's striking. And there's another story that I'm working on right now, which is it's a Finnish story about the Mouse Bride. My God, I've never read that story before. It's so good. I love it. Absolutely love it.
The Mouse Bride. I'll have to look that up.
I'll record it and I'll send it to you.
Okay. Very cool.
And Robin Schulte says, wonderful mashing of folktales. Also gives us such depth. Yes. That's what I thought as well. A little heart at the end. I like that.
Well, it's what I really love about that particular story is usually when I tell it full out, I announce that it's a story everyone knows. And, when I get to a point where you think you know what it is, don't yell it out. Just raise your hand.
Yeah.
You think you know what it is. And so we go on and on and on and on and on. And every now and then I stop and go, does anyone know what this is yet? And people go, oh, yeah, I got it. And sometimes they'll say it's this. And I'll go, okay. And we keep going. And so at the very end, it's Little Red Riding Hood, and everyone just starts laughing because you're like, where was this going?
Yeah.
And it's called Three Princes Riding. So in the title, there's that little, if you had, you would figure out there's Red Riding.
Foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm. But no, but they always think it's that he's,
riding. They always focus on those guys.
Yeah. So I think it's a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of fractured fairy tales, mostly because a lot of kids don't know the real fairy tales.
I know, isn't it shocking? There are librarians come out of media school that don't know the stories. These young kids coming out and they don't know folk and fairy tales.
Right. So fractured fairy tales really only work if you know the actual story.
Right.
So I don't choose to use them most of the time. Most of the time I just do straight up folklore, straight up fairy tales. It's always interesting to me the number of stories, a number of things you see in the culture that are based on folk and fairy tales. And a lot of people don't realize that they are.
Right.
Right.
It's to say there's all sorts of references to Greek culture or Greek myths and the Norse myths, and people have no idea.
Right. And then the famous line from the Three Sisters, I forget his name, the big Russian playwright. He did the Three Sisters.
Oh, Chekhov?
Chekhov. I want to call him Chechnya, but I know that's not right. Chekhov. Chekhov. That line that every human being in the world has heard in one form or another, that people don't know that came from that. It's when the wife is the daughter, the mother is sitting there, and the money is running through her hands symbolically because she's spent the family fortune, and she says, "I'm a lover, not a banker." And that's where that comes from. You said that, or she says, "I'm an actress, not a banker," something of that nature.
Yeah.
That's where that line comes from. But who appropriated that? Star Trek. I'm a doctor, not an engineer. I'm a doctor, not a doctor, not a blank. I'm a this, not a that. I hear that.
I'm an engineer, captain, not a magician.
Right. But I even hear it in children's cartoons.
Yeah.
Right. They like, they appropriate that phrase, which a lot of people think came from Star Trek, actually came from Chekhov. It's so used funny. All over the place. And I just giggle inside nothing. I want you to because I'm a theater person, and I saw, we studied that particular play. But I just think it's hysterical to me. It's everywhere. And I thought maybe he got it from somewhere. Maybe it's even older.
Maybe, yeah.
But that's the first time I ever saw it, like in print somewhere, was there. And, a lot of theater people end up in movies, in the movie industry. That line, I'm a this, I'm an engineer, I'm a whatever he is, not a this. Yeah. It's hysterical, but it shows up all over the culture.
Maybe we need to bring it back and like use it in our stories and say, as Chekhov once said. I will paraphrase what Chekhov originally said.
I don't know. Well, but that particular phrase, like I said, it goes through the culture. But the story images and story memes are everywhere, and people don't necessarily know that that's where they come from.
It's true.
You got to pay the piper is from the Pied Piper.
Right, you do.
And a lot of kids have never heard that story.
I know, and it's based on a true story. Well, I don't know if that's true. I think a lot of elementary school kids do it as part of like.
I've never heard it.
Really? Because my daughter did it. I've still got so when I was in school,
when I was a little tiny boy, when I used to pick my nose and fart and giggle.
Well, that hasn't changed any. But anyway.
Yesterday.
Yesterday. I have the puppet that I made at elementary school for the play of
the Pied Piper.
The Pied Piper. Yeah, I had this. I always, I look at it. It's a nice mouse, but it's not. It's a rat. But it has the wire whiskers because this is before things like that weren't allowed in school.
You poke someone's eye out, right. Yeah. Now we have a nice soft everything, right.
Yeah,
that's hysterical. Well,
I should kill you with this softball.
I loved that story when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I come from a family. There are 7 children. Okay, there's 7 of us. So perhaps I just like come up in stories. I don't know. Maybe that's possible. But I loved that story when I was a kid, just because it's so creepy.
Yeah, it's a dark. So the thing is that part of it's true. These kids did go missing. Mm-hmm. It's like 367 of them, or just vanished. Or taken away from the village, and were never seen again.
Why? Who took them?
We don't know. That's the whole point. The story apparently was on the church windows, because the church windows were the first comic books because people couldn't read. So the stories were put on the church windows for people to read and on altar doors and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I'd never heard that.
And then the rats were added later. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but what I did hear is that they, after the bubonic plague, that my understanding the origins of the story had to do with the bubonic plague and the rats being everywhere and people trying to lead them away with music. And that sort of morphed into this larger story.
Yeah.
But that had been what I had heard about where this story came from.
Yeah, no, I love the story of the Pied Piper. Mo's being fancy now. I think we're going to cut her off.
Just a keep track of all the time. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's Shakespeare is what I quote most of the time.
Shakespeare. I'm always amused when I hear those, and sometimes I'll be like, that's Shakespeare, and I go,
And yeah, right. Well, the words that he invented are phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When I was at school, we used to call him Billy Wobblerod. We're studying Billy Wobblerod's the Scottish one,
Well, I mean, you Europeans are harsh.
I know.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're harsh or self-deprecating, whatever the word is. Yeah, I think just as I've read that as well, that they appeared and that they were kidnapped, and because there was a certain dialect that was from the next town over.
Well, there's a great poem, and I'm not going to remember what it was. I'm really good for this. My brain's like Swiss cheese when it comes to names. I'm very bad at remembering people's names. I can remember stories from when I was 6 entirely, but I can't remember names or numbers. I can't do that either. But his poem about
I'm a storyteller, not a banker.
Or an accountant. I'm a storyteller, not an accountant. So the poem is about what happened to the children of Hamelin. And it says that there was a faraway land where all these children grew up, and they spoke a different way from everyone else, and that's where they were. So potentially that's the story of what happened to them, or they were taken for whatever reason they were taken.
Right.
But it's a poem that supposedly explains where they went. Yeah.
Well, Donna, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We've been chatting for a while now. It's like almost an hour. It's only going to be like 30, 40 minutes. We're having too much fun.
You are easy to talk to.
Likewise. So, Donna, I'm going to cut us short here, if you don't mind. We'll definitely do this again if this thing, starts all over again and we're stuck for another 8 months.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. So, everyone, I thank you very much indeed for being here. It was wonderful having Donna here with me. And at 7 o'clock tonight, I'll be doing Andy Davis. 7 o'clock tonight. I'll be having a conversation with Andy Davis. So yes, join us then. Same place, same different time, and have fun. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks, Donna. See you.
Thank you, Simon.